The scene is a grand courthouse lobby, buzzing with quiet, anxious energy. It's a place of high stakes and hushed conversations. And right in the middle of it all, a storm is brewing. A uniformed police officer, his chest puffed out with authority, is standing directly in a woman's path. He's tall, broad, and his face is a mask of pure dismissal. "You need to step aside," he says. His voice isn't loud, but it's sharp, edged with an impatience that's bordering on contempt. He doesn't say, "Ma'am." He doesn't ask. He commands. We see her then. A black woman, dressed professionally in a tailored blazer and slacks, holding a briefcase. There is nothing about her that looks threatening, yet she's being treated like an obstacle. But her face shows no fear. She's calm, her eyes unwavering as she holds his gaze. That stillness seems to unnerve him more than any shouting match ever could. She doesn't move. She doesn't speak. She just stands her ground. And in that silent, defiant moment, a single question hangs in the air: what happens when an immovable object of prejudice meets an unstoppable force of dignity? The answer is why this story became a legend. Some stories spread across the internet not because they're documented news, but because they feel true. They live in comment sections and viral videos, whispered and retold until they become modern-day legends. They're parables that give a voice to our frustrations and our deep hunger for a kind of justice that often feels just out of reach. This is one of those stories. It's a viral legend about power, prejudice, and the moment the entire system gets flipped on its head. Now, to be crystal clear, the specific events and characters are a work of fiction. There's no official record of a Judge Kesha Williams going through this exact ordeal, no news reports, no court documents. Instead, she's a symbolic figure, an avatar for every person who has been underestimated, disrespected, and forced to prove their worth against a wall of prejudice. This is the story of how a fictional slap echoed through the halls of justice, and how a woman's quiet dignity became louder than any act of aggression. To understand the explosion, you have to see the fuse being lit. Our story is set in a place that feels very real to many, the Cuyahoga County Courthouse in Cleveland, a building meant to symbolize equality for all. But on this morning, that promise feels empty. We'll call our protagonist Kesha Williams, just as she's known in the viral retellings. She's not in a judge's robe yet. She's simply a black woman walking into the place she works, her mind already on the day's docket and the lives that will intersect in her courtroom. But two officers near the entrance don't see a professional. We'll call the lead one Martinez, a man who embodies a specific, ugly brand of prejudice. In his eyes, a black woman walking with such confidence is a threat to the natural order of things. He sees her suit not as a uniform, but a costume. He and his partner exchange a quick, knowing smirk that says it all: "Here we go." Another one who thinks she owns the place. As Kesha approaches the security checkpoint, a path she's walked 1,000 times, Martinez steps forward, physically blocking her. His posture is pure intimidation. "Hold on. Where do you think you're going?" Kesha pauses, a brief flicker of surprise quickly replaced by that same calm. "I'm going to my office," she says, her tone perfectly even. It's a simple fact, but Martinez hears it as a challenge. "Your office," he scoffs. "Right. And I'm the King of England." "What's in the bag?" he asks, gesturing at her briefcase. "Legal documents," she replies, her patience wearing thin but her voice remaining steady. She knows this game, the "prove you belong here" test that people who look like her are forced to take over and over again. "Legal documents," Martinez parrots, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he turns to his partner. "Hear that? We got ourselves a regular Perry Mason." The other officer lets out a nervous chuckle. This is where the injustice begins, not with a bang, but with the slow, grinding erosion of a person's dignity. It isn't just one officer on a power trip, it's the casual cruelty, the shared laughter, and the unspoken agreement that this woman deserves their scorn simply for existing in this space with confidence. They have uniforms and weapons. She has only her composure and the truth, a truth they're determined to ignore. We, the audience, are meant to feel that rising tide of outrage as we watch a professional being reduced to a caricature by men who judged her on sight. Section 2, The Confrontation. The air in the lobby crackles with tension. Kesha Williams could have just shown her judicial ID. She could have ended the whole thing right there. But according to the legend, she made a choice. This was no longer about proving who she was. It was about standing up to an abuse of power. Showing her ID now would mean accepting that their baseless suspicion gave them the right to question her existence. So she holds her ground. "I've stated my business," she says, her voice firm. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." She tries to step around him. This is the moment Officer Martinez was waiting for. Her refusal to back down is all the justification he needs. He sees it as insubordination. "I said, hold on," he snarls, all mockery gone from his voice, replaced by a hard, dangerous edge. His hand shoots out and grabs her upper arm. The grip is tight, meant to bruise. A few onlookers gasp. A young lawyer freezes, his eyes wide. A court clerk clutches her files, her face pale. They see it happening, but they are silent, trapped in the same system that empowers Martinez. "You don't walk away from me," Martinez growls, his face inches from hers. "You are being detained. You're trespassing." The charge is absurd, trespassing in her own workplace. But the word gives him a legal excuse for his aggression. And this, the legend says, is when he shoves her. Her heel slips on the slick marble floor, and she stumbles backward, slammed against the cold wall. The impact knocks the wind out of her. Her briefcase clatters to the ground, spilling case files and judicial memos everywhere. "You want to resist?" Martinez spits, his face a mask of rage. He twists her arm behind her back, and the sharp click of handcuffs echoes through the silent lobby. The humiliation is absolute. She's cuffed, slammed against a wall, surrounded by the scattered papers of her profession, while the men who did this stand over her, triumphant. To anyone watching, she has lost. The officers have all the power, and they've used it to crush her. The story has brought us to its darkest point, all to make the dawn that's about to break that much brighter. This is the moment the whole story hinges on. The twist. The reason this parable went viral. With the cold metal of the handcuffs on her wrists, Kesha Williams doesn't fight. She takes a slow, deep breath, turns her head, and looks directly at Officer Martinez. "Are you finished, officer?" she asks. Her voice is so unnervingly calm. It's the voice of someone who isn't a victim, but someone who is just, waiting. Before Martinez can answer, the court bailiff, an older man who has worked here for decades, comes jogging over. He takes in the scene, the cuffed woman, the smug officers, the papers on the floor. He starts to move in, but then he stops. He looks closer at the woman against the wall. His expression shifts from confusion to dawning horror. "Judge," he whispers. Then louder, looking from her to the officers. "Oh, my God. Judge Williams." Martinez's smirk evaporates. "Judge? What are you talking about? This is a trespasser." The bailiff ignores him completely. "Your Honor, are you all right?" He whirls on the two officers, his voice booming with an authority they can't deny. "What have you done? Take those cuffs off her. Now." There's a beat of stunned silence. The color drains from Martinez's face as he fumbles for the handcuff key. The click of the cuffs opening is deafening. But it's not over. Kesha simply rubs her bruised wrists, her eyes locked on the now trembling officer. She bends down with purpose and starts gathering her scattered papers. The young lawyer who had been frozen in fear rushes to help her. Then, she straightens up, turns, and begins to walk. Not toward the exit, but down the long hall, toward the main courtroom. She pushes through the heavy oak doors and walks past the bar, past the lawyers and defendants, and straight toward the one place no one else is allowed to go. She ascends the 3 steps to the elevated judicial bench. She stands behind the large, empty chair for a moment, a powerful silhouette. The bailiff steps forward and helps her into her black robe, transforming her from the woman assaulted in the hall into the ultimate symbol of authority in the room. She sits down in the high-backed leather chair. Her chair. She picks up the gavel, its weight familiar in her hand. Her gaze sweeps over the courtroom and finally lands on the 2 officers, who have followed her in and are now standing, utterly defeated, at the back. She brings the gavel down. Once. The sharp crack cuts through the silence. "Court is now in session," she says, her voice clear and powerful. "Bailiff, please bring Officer Martinez and Officer," she pauses, glancing at the second officer's name tag, Henderson, to the front. They're marched forward like defendants, standing before the very woman they'd slammed against a wall minutes before. "Officer Martinez," she begins, her voice even. "You detained me for trespassing. In a building where I have worked for over a decade. You assaulted and handcuffed me. And you did so based on what, precisely?" Martinez opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. "You did so," Judge Williams continues, "because you looked at me and you did not see a judge. You did not see a citizen. You saw a black woman, and you made an assumption. You saw what you expected to see, not what was there." She leans forward. "This robe and this gavel are symbols of a justice that is supposed to be blind. But you weren't blind to my race. You were blind to my humanity. You were blind to the very principles you swore an oath to uphold. Now, as the story itself acknowledges, a real judge can't preside over their own assault case. So she delivers a different, more profound kind of justice. I will be recusing myself from any criminal proceedings that arise from this," she announces. "That is for another judge to decide. However, my authority in this courthouse remains absolute. Bailiff, escort these 2 officers to the security office. Their access to this building is revoked and their duties are suspended, effective immediately, pending a full investigation by Internal Affairs, which I am ordering to begin this morning." She looks right at Martinez, a deep sorrow in her eyes. "You did not just assault a woman today, officer. You assaulted the very idea of justice. You are dismissed." As the 2 broken men are led away, the courtroom is silent, until one person starts clapping. Then another, and another. Soon, the entire room is on its feet, giving a standing ovation not just to a judge, but to a woman who refused to be broken. The viral story of Judge Kesha Williams usually ends there. But the power of this fictional tale lies in its connection to our very real world. It's a fantasy of instant accountability. In reality, the fight for justice is rarely so quick or so satisfying. Cases of misconduct get buried in bureaucracy, and consequences can take years, if they come at all. The story gives us a world as we wish it were, a world where prejudice is answered with immediate consequences, and the scales of justice are balanced for everyone to see. The fictional slap represents every dismissive comment, every baseless suspicion. And Judge Williams taking the bench is the symbolic answer, a powerful declaration that dignity can't be handcuffed. This story, though a fabrication, resonates with millions because it validates a shared experience and voices a collective hope for a world where respect is a given, not something you have to fight for. Sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones that are factually true, but the ones that tell the truth about how we feel. What do you think makes this story so powerful? Does it matter that it's a parable instead of a documented event? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe stories can challenge injustice, make sure to subscribe and share this video to keep this important conversation going. Thanks for watching.